Hello, good day. I am Gwendolyn Rivera. I am here because I want to share my presentation. So let's start. Kinds of proposition. But before that we tackle the kinds of proposition, let, let us know what is a proposition. A proposition is a statement through which judgment is expressed, meaning propositions are building blocks of judgment. So let's start the kinds of proposition. So, there are various kinds of proposition: casual, modal, simple, compound, inferential, existential, non-existential, categorical, and hypothetical. Another way of classifying the kinds of proposition is to divide them either as simple or compound, with the latter including in its category the modal, categorical, hypothetical, complex, and multiple proposition. So, let's discuss the categorical proposition. Categorical proposition. A categorical proposition is a kind of proposition that expresses an unconditional judgment. This unconditional judgment expressed in a categorical proposition is made manifest in such a way that the predicate either affirms or denies the subject. So, for example, all rabbits are long-eared. So, the subject there is a rabbit and the predicate is long-eared. So, next is categorical proposition has three essential parts. So, there are three parts. The first is the subject, second is copula, three is predicate. So, let's tackle the two perspectives. Categorical propositions are classified into two perspectives. So, the first perspective is from the standpoint of quantity and the second is from the standpoint of quality. So let's tackle the first perspective. Two kinds of proposition from standpoint of quantity. First is universal and two particular, mean by a classification of categorical propositions from standpoint of quantity, the number of objects to which the proposition is applied. So first is the universal. Universal proposition is defined as proposition whose subject term is universal. The universal quantifiers or quantifiers that make the subject term universal include every, each, anything, whatever, everybody, any, all, no, and none. So, example of universal is angels are spiritual creatures. This sentence is universal because all angels are by their nature spiritual. So, there's a word and all. So, next is let's tackle the particular. Particular proposition is a proposition whose subject term is particular. The particular quantifiers or quantifiers that make the subject term particular are much, many, majority, few, some, most, practically all, apposition of, not all, and certain. So, the example of the particular is like Catholic priests are saintly. This sentence is particular. It's because there are scandals found to the Catholic Church recently. So next, let's tackle the other proposition. Two kinds of proposition from standpoint of quality. So by now, this is quality. Kaniha kay quantity man to. So the first is affirmative and two is negative. So mean the relation established between the subject and predicate term agree is affirmative, disagree or negative. So affirmative copula is found in am, is, are, was, and were. So the example of this affirmative copula is like Chris Aquino is the host of the ABS-CBN game show Game Ka Na Ba? So, in that sentence is, makita nimo nga na siya S. So, affirmative to siya. Then, the negative copula is namely am not, is not, are not, was not, and were not. And the example of this is, Chris Aquino is not the host of the ABS-CBN game show Game Ka Na Ba? So, there the word is not. So that's why it is negative copula. Next is 4 types of categorical proposition. If we combine the quality and the quantity propositions, first is universal affirmative. Universal affirmative is signified by capital letter A. So the example of this is all birds are winged creatures. The subject of this sentence is the refers to all birds. Then the predicate is does not refer to every member. Example, the bats, the flying fish. Then next, number 2 is universal negative. Universal negative is signified by capital letter E. So the subject of the example of this is no birds are wingless creatures. So the subject is it refers to all birds by indicating that they are not part of the predicate kanang class. Then the predicate is refers to all wingless creatures by indicating that they are not the part of the subject class. Then next is number 3. Particular affirmative is signified by capital letter I. So the example of this is some birds are black things. So the subject is that it refers only to the same birds. And the predicate is refers only to the some black things, those which are birds. Then particular negative is signified by capital letter O. An example of this is some birds are not black things. So the subject is it is refers only to some birds that not all of them. And the predicate is refers to all members of the class, not one of them is in the class referred by some birds. So next is the quantity of the predicate term of categorical proposition. So a closer look at every proposition reveals the following: that the subject term always has a quantity, that every proposition always has a quality, and the predicate term always has a quantity. Literally, however, it would be unthinkable by use of language, example English, to assign a quantity to the predicate term. Example, all Filipinos are Asians. But in logic, the predicate term can be qualified. So, in logic is subject must have quantity to identify the quantity of propositions and predicate. That's all. Thank you. God bless.